And we were just driving, and he like pointed out the back window, and he's like, "There's the Eiffel Tower." Yeah, I'm going to Australia, and they're like, "You know the place is on fire, right?" The landscape is amazing. The people are amazing. Everyone talks about them, and they sound like they're so much fun.
They are very fun.
It's no party like a baby party, that's for sure.
No, that's very true. I tried to get Brian to come with his wife, and I tried to get Justin as well, and they were unfortunately busy that night, but it's okay.
They're too cool for that.
Yeah, apparently.
That's sad.
We'll get on there one day. But let's jump into it. Podcast 23. Alicia, it's great to have you.
Welcome.
Good to be here.
So we just talked a little bit. You said you were traveling.
Yes.
So I think a lot of our viewers are like our friends right now. So a lot of people know the Tatum, so they know that you've been kind of traveling. But so you were a nanny overseas.
Yes.
Where did that come from? Do you always want to just be a nanny overseas? Or
Not necessarily. I didn't really know it was a thing, actually, for the longest time. So I had been wanting to travel for a while, but coming from a big family, you know, it's expensive, so I hadn't really been abroad. And when I graduated high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Wasn't sure if college was for me. So I just started working as a nanny here locally. And one of my best friends, she was kind of in the same boat. She didn't want to go to school. So she started au pairing in Italy. And when I heard about that, I was like, that's a really cool idea. I'm already working as a nanny. If I can do that abroad, why not? So I talked about it for a while. And my family, and probably some of my friends as well, were like, yeah, she's not doing that. This girl from Ohio, you know, always had like the same homeschool friends and things like that. Like, never really branched out from that group. They're like, no way she's gonna like go live abroad by herself. But I talked about it long enough, and then eventually I got to the point where it was kind of like I needed to make a decision, because I was, you know, thinking about buying a car and doing things that would kind of pull me down here. And I just decided, you know what, I've talked about living abroad for a while. If I'm gonna do it, let's just do it. And so it was kind of like a flip of the switch. I started looking for a host family. Found a host family within the first couple of interviews that I did.
Ooh.
And then looked into getting a visa and booked my trip to Washington, D.C. to go to the French consulate and got my visa. And basically it happened in a span of like 2 months.
Really?
Like I decided in August and started looking for a family. And then October I left and moved to France.
That is
all by
incredibly
myself.
fast. That
Yeah,
is
it
actually
happened
really
fast, but it was probably good that it happened that quickly so that I didn't have time to like
Yeah, I was
freak
gonna
out.
say,
So I
feel
could still be like,
that's kind of
am I
how
actually doing this?
I feel like that's kind of how it has to be for like international travel, especially. Is like there has to be like to some extent there's got to be like the spur of the moment decision to kind of
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm just gonna do this. Like I need to go do it, and then you have to not think about it for too long. Otherwise, you'll start to think like, man, like this is kind of crazy, because you know, like when you're on that plane, you're about to go up, you're like, man, like this is crazy. Like you're about to go to a whole other country. You don't speak the language. You don't know the culture. You know any of these people. You're about to put your life into like some strangers' hands and stuff like that. It's like, but then it's a great experience.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure you found out. What was it like in France?
It was amazing. I feel like I'm one of those typical girls that always dreamed about going to Paris. Classic. But when I like actually went there, my host dad picked me up from the airport and we were driving home. It's probably like half an hour drive to their house. And we were just driving and he like pointed out the back window and he's like, there's the Eiffel Tower. Like, wait a second.
Like,
That's really it? It's right there?
Yeah.
I'm here? I live here now? Like, it was just one of those surreal moments where I was like, I'm doing this. And like you said, like on the airplane there, I was like, I'm moving to another country, living with strangers. I don't speak the native language there. Like, what am I doing? Am I crazy? But it was a really cool experience, and yeah.
That's insane. I'm not well traveled. You guys, like you are, and obviously you are. So like that taking that jump, it's just nuts. So you mentioned that you found like your family like online. Was there like an agency you went through?
Yeah, well, I went through an online agency, and basically just like a website. It's called Au Pair World.
Okay.
And you just sign up, you make a profile, kind of write about a little bit about you and your experience with childcare, if you have that, which some people don't, because a lot of people do it just as their gap year.
Okay.
So 18, when they graduate high school, they just want to live abroad somewhere, so they don't really have that experience, whereas I have a big family, and a lot of my friends have big families, so I've been babysitting since I was like old enough to babysit, and then also worked as a nanny for 2 years. So I just kind of put that in there, and then started looking for families around the Paris area, because that's where I wanted to be. And then they write you or you write them, and then you'll do like a video call and see how you vibe with that. And I had asked my friend who was in Italy doing it just kind of what to expect and what are some good things to look for. And when I found my family that I went to, like we hit it off really well. They spoke really good English, which was nice.
That's super nice.
Because we were able to actually communicate, whereas there were some families that their English was really bad, which is okay. And ultimately, like, maybe I should have gone to a family that wasn't willing to speak as much English so that I could pick up French better. But I was grateful that my host family spoke English. And then they had one girl, 10 years old. Like, it was just super easy work. And we got along. We were like friends. You know, I was friends with my host kid. So it just felt right. And they had already had au pairs before. They knew what the experience was going to be like. They helped me with my visa process and everything like that. So it just went really smoothly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did it last like all day? So like, were you like, what's an au pair like do? Is it like 9 to 5? Is it just?
Yeah. So it kind of just depends on the ages of the kids. So most of my families that I've had, the kids are school age. So typically, get up in the morning and you help them with, you know, getting breakfast and getting ready for school, packing lunches, things like that, and then dropping them off to school. And then I would have time from normally 8 or 9 whenever they go to school till about 3 or 4, depending on when they get back, and then pick them up. A lot of times they have after school activities and then just take them home. They have a snack, help with dinner. Sometimes, you know, I would cook. Sometimes the parents would come home and they would cook, and I would just like keep an eye on the kids. And then it depends. Like sometimes I've had families where I help them all the way up through bedtime, and sometimes after dinner you're done because like the parents want to do that. So it really just depends on the ages. I have had a couple of families where the kids were younger, so I was with them all day, and that is very exhausting. So that was more of like get the older kids off to school and then work all day, and then as soon as the parents get home, they're like, go, have some free time, like keep your sanity.
Yeah.
Basically.
That's super cool. So how many families have you like worked for?
I think I've gone to maybe 8.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is way more than I thought.
I thought it was like
Yeah.
3.
Yeah, holy cow! Because you were talking about like families in plural, so it's like, oh, it's probably more than 3.
Yeah.
But it's like when you say 8, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, lots of different families. So I was in France for about a year, like the school year. So I was just with one family there. And then I was in Australia for almost 3 years. And so I moved around from family to family, averaging about every 6 months.
Okay.
And that was mostly just because, you know, either they didn't need an au pair anymore, or I was ready to move on because I like, you know, living in new, exciting places. I'm like, 6 months, I feel like I've kind of seen and done what I want to here. So I'm ready to move on and go someplace else.
Were people like referring you from like place to place too?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's the thing about it was so easy to get jobs because, I mean, all my host families were able to like be my reference. So that really helped.
So you're able to go like anywhere you wanted in Australia.
Basically.
That's
Yeah.
So were you like as like a 6-month contract, or is it like month by month?
Sometimes you will be asked to sign a contract. I think out of all my families, I've only signed one. And even for that family, they typically wouldn't have had me sign one because it's a really casual sort of agreement.
Right.
But the reason that I needed to was because at the time I had been living in Sydney, Australia, and it was during COVID. And so each state there had their borders closed. And so I wanted to move to Western Australia, across the country. And in order to cross the border and enter into WA, I needed to have a pass, like a travel pass by the government. And so in order to apply for that, my host family needed to, you know, prove the importance of me being there so that they could work and everything. And so in that process of applying for the pass, they needed like a contract so that it looked very official.
That makes sense.
But
yeah, it's like
it was, a
very
process.
So you were in Australia during COVID.
Yes.
From what I remember, it was one of the like strictest lockdowns like in the whole world.
I would say yes, but at the same time, we also were just very delayed in getting the virus over there.
Okay.
So, yeah, I was there. I arrived in Australia January 2020. So when I went over there, I didn't know what COVID was. Like people were just starting to talk about it, and then it kind of just snowballed into this massive thing over the course of the next few months. And so we were in lockdown. I was in Sydney. I think that lockdown was only 6 weeks. And so not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the borders opened up. I did some traveling and then flew across the country. And then when I was in Western Australia, because they were very strict on their border rules, I was barely in lockdown at all there. I was living in a smaller town at the time, and like it was like COVID didn't exist, which was really nice. Especially because like family and friends back here were definitely like feeling the effects, and also like when you see it on the news and everything, like a lot of countries were really struggling, where it like the cases were just really low in Australia in general at that time. And then when I moved a few hours south to Perth, which is like the main city in Western Australia, there were a few lockdowns, but it was when there was like one case. There was one case of COVID, and so they locked everyone down for like 3 days to avoid the spread. So like I feel like that's the kind of stuff that you guys would hear about. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. But in reality, it really saved us from getting sick. I never got COVID when I was there, so that's kind of nice.
That's interesting.
But then, as it like later on, it was more like 2022 when it kind of got bad there. And that's when it started to get really big.
Interesting. So it was really delayed.
So the lockdowns changed in like 2022 then?
Mm-hmm. Well, it was like they didn't have as many lockdowns, but it was more just like everyone was very restricted in ways. Like you couldn't travel as much. Like you were still able to like live your life normally and go out to the shops and things like that. But the borders were closed.
You have to wear masks and stuff too then, I'm guessing.
Yes. Sometimes, like when it first started happening, like when I was in Sydney and like people were just like wearing masks because that's what they preferred. I only wore it when like you could possibly be arrested if you weren't wearing one.
Yeah.
So I think that's the part that you kind of hear like it was really intense in that sense. But I don't know. I feel like I barely spent any time in lockdown. So from my experience, I'm like, it was fun. I was still able to travel around, things like that. But Australia in general, it was, pretty intense in that sense.
It's interesting.
Because like Melbourne, they were one of the most lockdown city in the world.
Jeez.
So.
But later on during the course of like the COVID era or whatever you were saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, later on once they started.
Makes sense. Yeah, I guess it's kind of funny because they really are like the opposite of the world from us, like in every single way. Because I remember in Ohio, like we got it, I want to say the USA got it like pretty early on. But we also got out of it pretty early on, I think.
Compared to lockdown was March like 15th.
Yeah.
Because I had surgery the 10th. Okay. And so I was out, just incapacitated. I had shoulder surgery. And then COVID happened. And people were telling me about it. I'm like, there's no way. Like, what? Everyone's wearing masks. No one can go outside. I'm like, that doesn't exist. So, because I was out. And I think maybe 2 weeks later, I drove to the store with my dad, and there's nobody out. And I'm like, what happened? Like, it felt like the end of the world. It made no sense that I'm still on drugs at that point. So it's like, it was just so trippy. But COVID is like, it was so weird. It's like weird to think about. I feel like it didn't happen, but that it did happen at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a funny story. I remember Chris putting a napkin inside his glasses. He didn't have a mask. Like, oh, you need to get a mask on to go to the store. Like, okay.
No one had it at that point.
No.
Yeah.
When you were there, like when COVID kind of started over here, did that like, because I don't know what your travel plans were when you originally went to Australia.
Yeah.
Did COVID kind of like prolong your stay? Like you were there and you're all of a sudden it was like COVID's like, oh, like I really can't go home now. I guess I might as well just stay in Australia.
Yeah, definitely. So when I first went over there, I was just kind of like, I think I'll live in Sydney for 6 months, have that experience. I didn't really know much about Australia, to be honest. I didn't realize how big it was and how much there was to see there. I feel like, I don't know, that's just not really something that we learn much in the States about Australia. So, yeah, that was kind of my plan. I was like, Great Barrier Reef, got to see that when I'm there. And like little things like that. But I don't know. I thought I was going to be there for 6 months, maybe 8. I could be back at least by Christmas for sure. So that would have been like a year. But when COVID hit, I had a lot of friends that went home because, they just felt like it was, the right idea, like the right choice to make. And, they didn't want to be separated from their families for who knows how long. But I had talked to my family, not that I ever really considered going home, but they were like, do you want to come home? And I was like, no. Like, I'm just going to stick it out because it'll pass. And the more that I had made friends and talked to other travelers, like I was realizing there was a lot to see in that country. So I just decided to stay, and I knew that my visa was going to last for a year. So I was like, okay, I'll just do the year, go from there. When my visa was it was about to run out, I still didn't want to leave because at that point I had road tripped most of the East Coast, and now I was living out west, and I wanted to do all the West Coast, basically. I wanted to do everything, but I was like, there's still so much more to see. I want to stay here. And so I started looking into visa options, and they actually created a COVID visa, which was basically for any of like the backpackers, the work and holiday visas to stay there because Australia really, really runs on, those kind of workers. And so they really needed people to stay. Obviously, people weren't coming in to the country, so they were giving out this free opportunity for people to stay. And so I applied for the visa. It was free, and they granted it the first time. The second time, I was in what they call bridging visa. You're just like waiting around. You never get the official answer, but they're not going to kick you out until they give you an official answer. So I was in this bridging visa for over a year. So I was like, hey, as long as I'm like still allowed to be here, I'll stay. So it definitely changed the time frame of how long that I was there, but for the better, in my opinion.
So you said you traveled like all over Australia. What was like the top kind of things you did over there?
That's a hard question. On the East Coast, I really, really liked the Whitsunday Islands. Okay. It's probably like halfway up Queensland, and it's around the Great Barrier Reef area, not quite up in like the main part of it, but just these stunning, stunning islands and like white sand, crystal clear blue water. Like I think it's up there in like the top like 10 beaches in the world, and I can see why.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Never heard of that place.
That's what I've heard is like just that whole area of like the Pacific Ocean. Is that technically the Pacific Ocean? Or,
yeah.
So, like that whole area, like the beaches, the islands there are just the best in the world. Yeah, I have a few friends, you included, who have all been there, and they all say the exact same thing, that there are literally no beaches like anywhere else in the world that can match.
Yeah, it's stunning.
So like I'm a huge fan of Australia. I grew up watching The Crocodile Hunter. That was my jam. And I've always wanted to go there and go to his zoo. I actually don't even know where it is in Australia.
It's just north of Brisbane.
Yeah, that's where we're going.
I've been there.
Yeah. You've been to the zoo?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
There's a lot of creepy crawlies in Australia. Was there ever like an issue with that, like big spiders or like crazy snakes that you're just like, whoa?
Honestly, not for me, which I am very grateful for. I mean, I'm not like deathly terrified of like spiders or snakes and stuff like that, but they're creepy. Yeah. I don't want to have a close encounter with them. And a lot of people would say like, oh, you got to go to the outback to see those kind of things. Well, I was in the outback. I've camped in the outback, and there were snakes, there were spiders, but never anything like very close. Nothing, too scary. So I'm fortunate. I know people that have had massive spiders in their house, or just like 50, 100 spiders up in like the corner of their ceiling. I
leave so quick.
I don't know that much about Australia, but I do know that they have pretty much the most dangerous like everything. They have the most dangerous spider in the world. They have the most dangerous snake. They have the most dangerous sea snake. They also I remember finding this out. They randomly have the most dangerous tree in the world.
Really?
There's a tree in Australia where if you burn it, the smoke can make you blind.
That's kind of scary.
I was like, only something like that would exist in Australia.
It's like lucky no campfires, like just in case.
Well, honestly, like they have fire bans most of the year, basically everywhere, because bushfires are such a big deal.
Oh yeah, did they have like a bunch of fires?
I went right as that was happening, actually, like right the tail end of it.
Yeah.
But I was telling people, yeah, I'm going to Australia, and they're like, the place is on fire, right? So. Yeah.
Now we're not on fire. Dude, the thumbnail, dude, just fires in Australia plus COVID. It's clickbait.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy.
That's good. Was that 2020? When was
it was like end of 2019.
Yeah, because I remember that was like huge on the headlines.
The memes.
How the memes were nuts.
I'm sure.
Well, it was just crazy. The internet.
Yeah, I love the internet. But so back to the zoo.
Yeah.
How was the zoo?
It was cool. I was there on a Sunday afternoon, and so, we got there, and they just let us walk in for free. I don't know why I was expecting to pay good money because I'm like, this is such a famous zoo.
Yeah.
But I don't know if like what it was, if they had like, because it was so late in the day, we only had a few hours. But we just walked in for free, wandered around for a while, got to see lots of like cool animals. There weren't any crocodile like shows going on, unfortunately, but maybe that's why it was free.
Yeah. The good stuff's not here today.
But yeah, it was cool to like, you know, pet a kangaroo and like see all the animals that you don't always get to see. Like they're native to Australia, but sometimes they're hard to see in the wild.
Okay.
So I mean, I've seen heaps of kangaroos, dingoes, koala bears, stuff like that. But I don't know, it's cool to be able to like see them really up close as well.
Yeah.
You saw koalas like in the wild?
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool.
Yeah. There's been a couple of times where there was one where there was like a baby on the mama's back just like walking around.
Like National Geographic.
It was so cute. Yeah, legit. But it was funny because we were doing this walk. We were on one of these islands and it was a pretty famous walk to see koala bears. And me and my friend that I was with, we were talking, we were like, koalas, like they're so slow. Like we were almost thinking like kind of like sloth energy or lack of.
Yeah.
But like they're really slow. They just sleep all day, which is true. They do sleep. But we were just kind of like making fun of them in a way. They're so cute, but we're like, they live such a boring life. Yeah. And then we see this mom, and she's like booking it with the baby on her back. We're like, they're not actually that slow.
It's like propaganda from Australia. That the koalas are just slow.
I was gonna say, aren't they actually like semi-ferocious?
Yeah.
Like they can I've seen some like pretty gruesome injuries online of like Australian man like was attacked by like a koala and like they rip your eyes out.
They're cranky. Like they're just straight up cranky
because they're sleepy all the time.
Yeah. So then when they're awake, they're like,
I don't want to be awake. But yeah, they have like crazy claws and teeth and stuff. So you don't want to make one mad.
No. Anything in Australia you probably don't want to make mad.
Yeah,
that's very true.
Including the Australians.
Yeah. Wait, so then you said heaps of kangaroos. Was it like, so when I think of the kangaroos out in Australia, I think of like how we see deer.
Yes.
This is like the same thing?
Yep.
Dude, can you imagine?
You just see them everywhere.
Driving on the highway and
there they go. Yeah, because the first time I was visiting, like within my first, but my first week there, I think. And I was visiting a friend that she had au paired with me in France, and so now I was visiting her in Australia, which was really cool. But we were driving to her town, and we were out in the middle of like nowhere, and it was dusk, and I was like, I really want to see kangaroos, and the parents were like, yeah, we really don't want to see.
Yeah.
Because like when you're driving, you're like, I don't want to see a deer because chances are they're gonna run out in front of you. And so like I don't even think we saw any, but I saw some emus that time.
Ooh.
Just like running around, and I was like, yeah, that's cool. Okay.
Dude, I went on a week stretch where I'm like I want an emu. It's doing research. Like I'll make it a pen. Do you have to get multiple? So I was really bored at work, and I'm like, this is my task for today. Sorry, bosses. It's like, yeah, you need a lot of space.
Do they have like the phrase in Australia, like, we say deer in the headlight? Do they say like kangaroo in the headlight?
I don't think so. Not that I've heard of.
Okay,
maybe.
That would have been hilarious.
We should start it now. Let's let all your Australian friends watch this.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's a new thing.
They're like, what's the phrase, guys?
It's like, wait, what does deer in the headlight mean? Kangaroo are probably a lot smarter than white-tailed deer are, I imagine.
I hope so.
Because, deer are just unbelievably stupid.
Yeah, kangaroos don't really like have the tendency to just like stare at the headlights. They just keep hopping right in front of you.
They have so much swagger though. Like they know. Like I am a kangaroo.
And muscles.
Dude,
you've seen those videos where they're just like jacked like this.
I've seen a couple of them like kind of fighting.
Oh no.
Like it was in the distance, thankfully, but I was like, those are massive.
Oh, dude, I think
you don't want to make a kangaroo angry.
When was it? There's people that would like have kangaroos in the States and put boxing gloves on them and they'd fight against them.
Oh,
you ever see those videos?
Kangaroo Jack?
I'm like, that's a big thing.
People used to fight kangaroos. Like, why? Like, some of them because there's different like there's like white-tailed deer, but there's like different kinds of kangaroo.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say it's like the red kangaroo or something like that. They're the massive ones that are like 6 feet tall or something like that.
Yeah.
And stupid big, just jacked.
Have you seen that video of the guy where his like dog got like semi-kidnapped by a kangaroo?
No.
So I guess he was out with his buds out in like the what do you call it, the outback, right?
Yeah.
So they're out in the outback, and this guy's dog is literally being dragged from like his group by this like massive kangaroo. And so this Australian guy just goes up to the kangaroo. He's like, walking up cautiously, and he's like walking right up to the kangaroo, just punches it right in the nose. And the kangaroo just like, he's like stops, like he didn't know what to do. He just like pauses. He was like just like pauses, like whole life stop. Let's go to the dog, and the Australian guy just walks back, and the dog comes with him. I was like, that's the most Australian thing I think I've ever seen in my entire life.
They're so chill. Like, nothing phases them. They're just like, yeah, that happens. This is awesome.
It's like Russians and bears. It's like Australians and kangaroos.
Yeah. Or anything, honestly, like crocodiles, the spiders. They're just like, yeah.
Are they all just like that? Like what's the demeanor like for like Australians? Like I see like the Love Island, like those kind of people. Like,
I wouldn't say like they're not all super, like bogan, like rednecks or whatever. I feel like the ones that are like, yeah, they're gonna be like pretty chill about the animals and the insects and stuff. But I was mostly in cities, and so yeah, we don't really want to see that kind of stuff. Like, it's exciting to see, but no, who really wants a massive spider in their bedroom? Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I would probably pass on that as well.
Yeah. So were you like, when you got there, were you like infatuated with like their accents? Like,
I still am. Yeah. Honestly, like I talk to my friends and I'm like, that's so cool. Yeah. I don't know. It's funny. I like accents in general, but just hearing them talk and hearing like the slang that they use, it's fun. I like it.
Their slang's nuts. I think it's they're going viral or went viral like a handful of like weeks ago. Just how they talk, it just makes no sense. How they say "oh no," it's like "r no."
Yeah. Actually, I just saw a video like yesterday, and they were saying if you say like R and R fast, it's like "r no." Yeah. That's what the Australians sound
like. So we were doing that New Year's Eve. It was my family. We're watching a movie, and we had our friend Tiffany over. And so she's not used to our big family. And we were just saying R&R like 30 minutes. She used to do like this. She couldn't take it. She's like not used to big family. It was so fun.
If you say rise up lights in a British accent, it sounds like you're saying razor blades with an Australian accent.
Yeah.
Try it.
Razor blades?
No, rise up lights.
Rise up lights?
With a... Yeah.
Rise up lights?
With a British accent.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're saying
a little bit,
yeah.
Rise up lights.
What was your favorite like slang that you used out there?
I picked up so much, honestly. Just like little things that now I don't even think of. Like, for example, when I said heaps earlier and you said that, most people are like, you mean like lots and lots?
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. It's one of those things that you just say a lot. But I mean, I would say mate. I like saying mate. Like, hey mate, thanks mate. Hanging out with my mates.
Yeah.
And that's, cheers. Very common.
You earned that though. You actually can say that. Like, we started saying like, what's up mates? It's like.
That's the thing, and I'm like, when I talk about, like, I say those kind of things here, I'm like, is that really annoying? But I'm like, you know what? I don't care if it's annoying, because it's part of who I am now.
Exactly. You have a story to go behind it. Like, you were there for, like, however, like, over a year?
3 years, almost. And then a year in New Zealand, and they say that there as well, so.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes.
I did not realize it was 3 years. That's crazy. I guess that's true, because you were only back during, like, the holidays, right?
Like, the end of, well, my brother was getting married end of 2022, so... Came back for that, stayed for a few months through the holidays, and then left in January again.
That's crazy. So you mentioned New Zealand. So you went from Australia to New Zealand?
So I was in Australia. I came back home for a few months, and then January of 2023, I left for New Zealand.
Is that like similar to like Australia?
It is pretty similar, yeah. Okay. I mean, they're just across the pond, as everyone says. And yeah, there weren't a whole lot of differences between the two. It's just a lot smaller, obviously. And the town that I was living in, like, it's one of the, more, like, well-known towns of New Zealand, but it was really small.
Yeah.
Were you in Christchurch?
I was in Queenstown.
Oh, you were in Queenstown, okay.
Yeah, so it's not even really, like, a city, but
okay.
It's, like, the second biggest, like, populated place in South Island, so, like, whatever you want to call that. But,
oh, man, that's fun.
Yeah, it was really cool. And it really was, like, small town vibes, surrounded by mountains, just very, like, cozy type atmosphere, so it was good.
That's awesome. I would love to go to New Zealand simply for the fact that, like, I'm a really big Lord of the Rings fan.
Oh yeah,
and I really just want to see it. And I know I had a friend, obviously one of our guys, Justin, went there. He was there with you, and he said it was terrible.
New Zealand's terrible. Guys.
The Lord of the Rings, not New Zealand.
I'm so happy you brought that up, because during that podcast, I asked him that question, because off camera he talked about how he didn't like the Hobbit area. He was saying it was mid. So I'm like, okay, perfect. I'm gonna set him up so he can just knock it down, and I wanted to use it for a clip to get hate on from the community. Yeah. And he's like, oh, it was fine. I'm like, no,
you're supposed to say it's bad.
When he said that, I was like, That's not what he told me.
Exactly. I was like, oh, come on. I wanted it so
You gotta
bad.
let the rage out on the internet.
But are you like a fan of Lord of the Rings?
I wouldn't say I'm like a massive fan. I mean, I've seen each of the movies like twice probably, but it was fun to see. Like when I went to the Hobbiton movie set, I went with 2 of my Australian friends, and I don't think either of them had seen the movies or read the books or anything, but they thought that it was cool. And, you know, it was fun. And then, yeah, when I did certain locations and we did like the hike and everything, like the walk to Mordor and stuff, like that was really cool. And actually, my host dad in New Zealand, he was part of the crew for the filming of The Two Towers, and my host mom played an orc. She was an extra. So,
Wow, that's so
like
cool.
everyone in Queenstown was involved in those movies. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
Just get the down on. It's like, all right, get to make a bye, guys.
It'd be funny if none of them had ever even seen the movie.
Or read the books.
Yeah, I
either.
read the books. He was like, hey, you're going to be an orc. A what?
Oh, what? Wait, I'm going to look like that?
I didn't even think about that because you said it's not a huge island.
Mm-mm.
So yeah, I guess it was probably huge for like New Zealand.
Oh, yeah. It's like one of the biggest like tourist.
I heard it was
There.
very expensive.
Yes, it is
Like
expensive.
way too expensive.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably how they
I mean,
Yeah,
it makes up some of their like country's GDP is just the amount of people like go to the Hobbiton every single year.
oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's probably overpriced, but we're all still willing to pay it.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
even if we're Lord of the Rings like
I mean-
fans, or if you're kind of a hater like Justin.
Yeah. So, was New Zealand itself like expensive, or like was any place you went to expensive? Like I'm, which used to like prices here in America, and we hear like Mexico's like real cheap.
Mhm.
You know, like $1 is like 1,000 pesos.
Yeah.
But did you notice like anything like vastly different in either like New Zealand or Australia?
I would say New Zealand's a bit on the more expensive side. When I was in Fiji, it's pretty expensive there. Tahiti was expensive as well. And then cheapest that I've been to, I would say Thailand.
Okay.
It's really
Thailand.
cheap there, so
Did you just visit Thailand, or did you? Like,
I just visited.
Okay, I was going to
like,
say you
a
were
week or two. Yeah,
nannying there.
Jeez.
that would have been interesting.
Was the water good in Fiji?
Oh my gosh, it was amazing. The best snorkeling that I have ever done. It was incredible. I went on a 5-day cruise, and like, every day we did like 2 snorkeling trips, and it just got better and better every day.
Yeah, it's like what dreams are made of.
Yeah,
Like snorkeling in Fiji, drinking the water in Fiji. Just go to Fiji.
Yeah, I would love to
Fiji
drink the
water.
Do they just call it water out there? I'm guessing
It's
not
just
just Fiji water.
Mhm. And you can find it anywhere and everywhere.
Wait, do they actually sell Fiji water in Fiji?
Oh yeah.
Is it cheaper?
I mean, it's all expensive. Even Fiji water is expensive.
It would be funny if it was more expensive, like
Yeah.
there than it was in here.
No, dude, they just sell like America water.
It's like this is Fiji water, and then there's like a sticker underneath, like a Discord. It's like from Fiji.
Yeah.
Like,
There's just an arrow pointing
This
from
is
like over there.
A little map of like where they're from.
yeah. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Oh man.
We got the crew on the ground right now.
I don't know what's going on in the background over there. Brian is
Are
having
you
a
okay?
he's having a field day.
I think you
That's-
like my Fiji question.
something about it set him off, but that happens with Brian a lot. He tends to get set off by a lot of random stuff, so it's okay.
It's stress from the wife. I don't want to touch
This
the
is a little bit of entertainment he gets.
Yeah. high dopamine. Something I was also interested in though is like talking about like the whole family like really quick. So was it usually? So you lived at their house?
Mm-hmm.
Were they like? My thought when I hear like au pair, I think like upper middle class. Is that like usually what it was?
Typically,
Okay.
yeah. A lot of the places that I lived, like the houses were nicer, and we drove nice vehicles and kind of lived the bougie life, which was cool. I mean, one of the houses that I lived in, they had like 6 different floors. They had a lift from the garage to the kitchen, and we were probably less than like 100 meters from the beach.
Jeez.
So yeah, that's pretty nice. A lifestyle that I probably will never get to live again.
No, but that's so cool you're able to do that though. It's like especially if you find that like the nannying semi enjoyable or enjoyable,
Mhm.
like you said, you literally traveled the world and then lived a lifestyle that like you probably wouldn't live or
Right.
really earn. If the podcast goes off, we could fund some more stuff.
No, there we go. But yeah, I would say like the people there and like my host families whether they, were on the wealthier side or not, everyone was so nice. Like, Australians in general are just some of the friendliest people. And, like, I've made some of my best friends there. And I look forward to going back every time because everyone's just so welcoming and they welcome you into the community. And, like, people say, why would you go to Australia? There's so many, like, bugs and spiders and stuff. But the landscape is amazing. The people are amazing. And, like, I was living on the coast most of the time. So just, like, the laid-back beach lifestyle that you get to live, like, who doesn't want that, So.
Did you go surfing?
Yes. That was one of my main objectives when moving to Australia was to learn to surf. And so I took a few lessons. And then when I moved to Perth, I joined a surf group. And we were all beginners. We didn't really know what we were doing, but that was kind of the point. Like, we were just out there to have fun and support each other. And it was awesome. We would go for sunrise surfs, and then we would go to a cafe and get coffee afterwards and just chat a little bit and make some really good connections.
It's like a movie.
It is.
It really sounds like a movie. Were you ever scared of, like, the great white sharks out there? Or?
No. I just don't really think about that kind of stuff.
You really can't.
I've done some crazy things. So I'm like, it won't faze me.
Yeah, one thing that was, like, on my bucket list is to, like, either go to Australia and, like, be in a cage, like, with the great white sharks.
Yes.
I've always wanted to do that. I watched a lot of Animal Planet when I was a kid, okay? Like, I didn't watch, like, anything like normal kids watch. I watched Animal Planet. Shark Week was fantastic.
Nice.
Still is fantastic. Yeah, I've always wanted to do that.
Something that you should do if you go to Australia is swim with the whale sharks. It's one of the most amazing things that I've done. It's
full.
Oh, yeah. I think that they can grow up to, like, 18 meters. And you're just, swimming right next to them.
What's that in American?
18.
I did it for effect.
Dude, the camera just got flipped off on Brian.
And it wasn't, like, intimidating at all. Like, you're swimming next to this massive creature, and it's just, like,
54.
So
we don't care. They're just really.
They're really.
I'm like 2 minutes behind.
Yeah. They're really.
Math is still mathing.
They're really big.
Yes.
Oh, this is fantastic. This is like I like just light, funny. Got to be funny. Get these guys better at holding in the laugh. So we'll get there. But hey, it's a good like test to make sure like it's funny.
No, 100%.
I made the Island Boys joke that I cut out one of the podcasts that just died.
Could it have made it in, or was it way too?
Oh, it was bad. And it was just like I kind of sang it, and then was like, "Yep, cut."
Yeah, you're like, no.
So I love having that power. I can cut whatever I need to.
It's not live. So.
No, not yet.
One day. That's definitely one of my favorite things about having a podcast is just like you're talking, you have a conversation, and you have people that are listening in. It's always a good sign on the conversation when you have people over there that are just like freaking out about something random.
Almost knock our camera down.
Yeah. You have no idea what it's about, but hopefully it's something good.
Mm-hmm.
One of the questions I really wanted to ask you that was, what do you think is one of the biggest things that you've learned from just traveling in general?
I would say just like independence, honestly, especially with like, excuse me, solo traveling. Yeah, because growing up, I lived in the same house, had like the same group of friends, and I moved across the world. I was forced to step out of my comfort zone and meet new people and just try new things, explore on my own, travel with strangers, live with strangers. So I would just say like independence and just like self-confidence of like, if I want to do this, I can do this and don't let anything scare me, sort of thing.
Yeah, literally traveling the world, meeting new people, like living in other people's houses. When you said that, like that's just crazy to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's awesome. And do you plan on doing it more, or do you think that's
something that I like keep thinking about? Right now, I feel like, that chapter of my life is closed and I'm ready for something else. But I never want to stop traveling. And if there's, a time where I decide that I want to live someplace and au pairing is maybe the best option for me, then I would maybe still consider it. Mm-hmm. But you do get to a point where you're like, you know what? I've become a very independent person. Yeah. So liking that independence, like, maybe I don't really want to live with the host family anymore. Maybe I want to get my own place. So, there's multiple other jobs that you can get living abroad, which I feel like a lot of people don't realize because they're like, how can you like move someplace if you don't have all that figured out? But sometimes you just up and move and then you figure it out when you get there and even if you're just like waiting tables or like making coffees. Hey,
Yeah.
if you can live in a cool place and that's what you want to do, that's what you want to experience, then you'll just get whatever job you can and make it work. So
That's sick. Yeah. So what's on your bucket list? Like, where do you want to go like next if you could choose?
well, I'm probably going to Europe again this summer. Really want to. My friend in Italy, she recently got married, and so I want to go visit her and meet her husband. And
Is she in Italy?
yes,
Oh, wow.
yes, she married an Italian, and they're going to live there for probably forever. I don't know if they're ever going to come back to the
And
States.
she's from here?
Yes, well, she was from Virginia.
Okay.
Good state.
Yeah.
Worst state.
I've spent a lot of time in Virginia visiting them, so I don't mind Virginia.
Yeah,
I love Virginia.
that's crazy. Could you imagine like what their family like thinks? Like, say, hey, I'm getting married in Italy now.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine having to plan that wedding.
Yeah.
That would be the worst.
I feel like it would be fun though. Like,
It
could you
would be.
imagine
Oh,
getting
yeah.
married in one of those churches in Italy?
Oh my gosh. I've never been to Italy, but yeah.
Well, neither have I.
Yeah.
Because I want to go.
Yeah.
It's
But, yeah.
fantastically beautiful. I will say that.
There's like a slightest chance that I could possibly go to Italy this year or Ireland. I don't know if I
Ireland's
can.
cool.
Yeah. Well, it'd be without my wife. So it'd be
Oh.
monkeys. So it's like one of those things like, oh, yeah, could I go? Maybe. It's like, I did the dishes today.
Ask her on a good day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Rubbing her back. Be like,
Yeah.
hey, sweetie.
Just gotta be careful. If I clean too much, she'll know something's up. It's like,
Honey,
All right.
I have been editing for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I've been spending a lot of time with you. So do you mind now if I go to Italy?
yeah. And I go to Italy for the weekend.
Yeah.
It's for good use. I'll have fun. Oh yeah, that's. I can't wait to travel one day. Well, technically, I still have a trip to Africa that I'm supposed to take.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
a crazy story.
should I tell the whole story?
Yeah, tell
Oh,
me.
yeah.
Well, so we have a guest that was on the podcast 3, whatever it was, Calvin, and he lives down in Cambridge, Ohio, and his dad's a part of, what's it, Ducks Unlimited, which is a horse conservation, whatever.
Okay.
And so we're down there for a fundraiser, and you pay to get it. It's like free beer, a bunch of raffles for guns and stuff like that. So to like really have like a really good time there, you need to spend like $200, $250, right? It's like you buy like $150 to like that big raffle, and you get like 30 tickets, and then there's a bunch of other small raffles.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many guns, it's insane.
Brian would love that.
Yeah, Brian would
absolutely love
It's insane. There's a lot of beer, a lot of guns. It's just America.
Yeah.
I did not fit in at all because down in Southern Ohio is like old, like whitish people. Not. It was really funny. They're all nice though. So there's also like auctions going on. So they have like half of it's stuff they're going to like raffle off, and then the other half's like all the stuff you can like bid on. And they had a silent auction like little area, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. So I was looking at it, and they had a bunch of hunting trips. I'm like, dude, these are cool. Like something like hog hunting in Texas from a helicopter. Dove hunting in Argentina. I'm like, this is like sounds like dreams. And one of them was an African safari hunt, and you get like I think it's 4 people, 5 days, all lodged up, and you get like 16 animals to I guess shoot. I was thinking of like a nice way to, yeah, it's what it is, just to shoot, and like it's just insane. So I called my buddy. I go, hey. That's what I said to him. I go, hey, do you want to go on a trip of a lifetime? And he's like, yes. I'm like, okay. Like it was like ended up being like $600 a person. Like, hey, like, do you want to go to Africa and hunt animals? He's like, yes, 100%. So I put in a bid. I think it was like a little over $2,000. I was going in there just to spend $300. Okay, that's all I was like allowed to spend. And this is before I got married, so I have a wedding coming up to pay for. And then I just did that. But someone else went out and bid me when I went to the bathroom. So I came back, and when they're like not looking, I put a bid in. And they're like, who the heck is this Michael guy? Why does he want to go? Like, we need to go on this trip. It's a bunch of guys. And I looked to them I'm like, you guys don't want to go on this trip? And they're like, why? I'm like, dude, like your wives will be pissed. And they're like, yeah, you're right. So I won.
Like,
And my wife,
yet.
yeah, my wife wasn't pissed, but now she says I can't go. But we'll see. This gets 3 likes. I'll go to Africa.
We'll make this into a clip. If this clip generates over 300 likes, Mike will go to Africa.
I'll go to Africa. I'll vlog the whole thing for you guys. But yeah, so I have a couple years to take it yet, but it's in somewhere like near the Cape. It's really down south over there, but it's insane. Like the website's so sketchy. Like, the things that you can pay to do in Africa is just nuts. Like I'll talk about it off. Because
I've never been. So
I made my sister cry like talking about like what they can do out there.
Oh wow,
it's nuts. But we'll sort of wrap up, I guess. On this awesome story. We've been having our guests like have like a call to action or something that they wanted to leave our audience with from your travel experience and just like taking that leap. Is there anything you want to leave our 26 followers on Spotify?
I would just say if there's something that you want to do, just do it. Like, jump off that cliff. You might land in cold water, but it's going to be cold and uncomfortable, but it's going to be worth it and it's going to be invigorating. So follow your dreams. As cheesy as it sounds, it's true because you'll never look back. Like, it'll be the best thing. So
you might end up in Australia.
Yeah.
And then on a podcast.
Yeah.
This is an awesome podcast, 23. Thank you for coming on. We'll definitely
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
Yeah. All right. See you. Thank you for being on.